Now, what we're seeing, as you brought up sort of earlier in the podcast, this flood of Chinese electric vehicles, and we're seeing EVs all over Europe now. How are German automakers reacting to this?
I think they have some problems because they have been worshiping at the internal combustion engine altar for quite some time. And I think that maybe they didn't expect China to innovate so rapidly. And in some respects, Europe is reliant on Chinese projects and batteries and even research institutes, because the Chinese are very smart. They're very clever. When these companies, for example, Siemens was investing in China, China demanded that they would build like 12 separate research institutes. And now, because the Chinese have all these well-trained technicians, these institutes are valuable to them. And they want to continue to have access to the technology that are coming from these institutes. So it was a smart strategy to kind of entangle Germany, to kind of pull Germany in. And it's worked so far. Really, Germany has kind of been guiding EU policy. And the car industry, though, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to compete against Chinese EVs. So I was in Bavaria, the home of Mercedes, this past June, and we had a meeting with some local government representatives, and they were pretty unhappy with the state of play. So they are trying to use their influence to protect their interests. And the thing is, when you have to get at the EU level, when you pass a directive, it takes a lot of time, a lot of horse trading, and finally they got this Green Deal through. But now German automakers several months ago, German automakers successfully lobbied to have that taken out, to have it changed. And other countries were very angry about that. They're like, well, we couldn't do that. Why can Germany do that? So, Germany has the ability to do that, to change some policies that were put in place.
A great democracy.
But they have a lot to lose. And now they're in a place where it's difficult for them to block, because they have a third of their profits come from their investments in China. And so the Chinese have gotten by what we would say the short and curly. So they really are in a tough position.
What do you think is going to be the long-term impact of Chinese electric vehicles in the European market? Like, what do you think we'll see, 5 years from now?
Well, we'll have to wait and see what the outcome of the anti-dumping investigation is by the European Commission. We might know.
So that'll take, 7 or 8 years?
We might know as early as this month in January. So we'll have to wait and see. That's going to be a tough call. And if China has made it very clear that they're unhappy with this investigation. They've used all their contacts to try to stop it or to prevent it, but it's taking place. Nothing's leaked out yet. And this is a very leaky city. No one's able to be interviewed about it, so they're investigating at this stage, and we'll see which way it goes. But it's very different in China as well, because they have a lot of electrical charging stations. And Europe, I had a ride once back a couple months ago. Someone kindly offered to give me a lift after a conference from Paris to Brussels. And I'm used to, driving that. It's not so far, but it took like triple the amount of time because there were no charging points. And we have to find a place, and then you sit and have a coffee for like 40 minutes while the car is charging until you get to the next place. And it was really arduous. I got home at like 2 a.m. I was like, what? I just wanted to get out of this car because this person was carrying some very sticky cheese. So it was a very long, terrible So that's my memory of my electric car ride. But it wasn't maybe the top of the line car, but still, I think.
Right.
I think they're kind of, in some areas, they might be a bit overrated. Like, I'm sure an electric Mercedes would be very easy, but like maybe the lower end cars are only good for very short treks. And
that all the poor people would be forced to get.
Well, so one of the concerns about electric vehicles, as I see it, is that like with combustion engines, you're basically powering them through oil that you're importing often from the Middle East, and that comes with its own set of problems. But with electric vehicles, you're charging them on the grid, and the grid is becoming more expensive in Europe because you've got natural gas going up. And then I'm imagining in places like France that are dependent on nuclear, they're buying some of their enriched uranium from Russia, or at least they were. And so now you've got like your energy security issues in Europe are now directly spilling into people's ability to drive their cars.
Yeah, I think, all right, some of the less developed European economies are complaining. They're like, we want these cheap cars. We need these cheap cars. But in terms of, I'm waiting. Like, I don't want to buy an electric car yet because I just want to wait to see where things fall, where the pieces fall, because there are a lot of issues about them being stolen. They're very easy to break into with these codes, and they're heavy. So for Europe, really, it's 27 EU member states, but some member states are more equal than others. Germany has had an impact on this, and they are also introducing kind of like a biofuel, which will be green compliant. So that's one way around it. But we'll see what happens, because being so dependent on electricity grid that the Russians could easily hack, I think is not a very smart strategy. And I think that when they made these rules for the green transition, I mean, maybe we can slow it down a little, like slow it down a bit. Yes, the climate's really important and we can do a lot, but in the meantime, and try to meet these goals. But focusing so much on the car industry has been very divisive, I would say, in Europe. And China's had a good, smart strategy. They're like, okay, we're going to focus on green industry. This is part of our 2025 goals. And, it's a very smart strategy. But I think that Europeans can survive a little longer if they don't have solar panels this year, And China also has made it difficult for them, even if they have to produce them in Europe, which are more expensive. But because they've blocked the 3Gs, right? So graphite, germanium, and I can't remember what the third one is. Sorry, I haven't reviewed that in a while. But so there are also, it's difficult for Europeans to even get the things needed if they wanted to build more expensive made in Europe solar panels. So
right. Plus, they also have to pay their workers, unlike what's happening in China with the Uyghurs making the solar panels.
And that's the other thing. I mean, what are the true costs of these cheap solar panels? I mean, if it's human rights abuses, if it's kind of destroying the environment to make a solar panel so Europeans can feel good about it, but at the same time, you're destroying the environment in China, how does that all balance out for the whole globe? So I think the way to hell is paved with good intentions. That's a saying that exists because I think that's where we are right now. I think that to become overly dependent on China at this key juncture is not a smart strategy. But unlike in the US, where you can move around a little quicker on policy, in Europe, once they reach that agreement, it's really, really difficult for them to backtrack on it. And it bears watching how they handle this sanctions package. So the investigation, I think, will be the number one thing in Ursula von der Leyen's inbox when she comes back to work.